Imagine watching 30% of your portfolio disappear in a single week, then finding out the very companies that scared you most are about to hand you the biggest gains of your life. That is exactly what happened this past June, and if you understand why, you could be sitting on one of the best buying windows we have seen in years. On Tickerhawk, we dig into the numbers so you do not have to guess, and if you find value in what I'm about to share, hit that subscribe button right now, because today's list could change how you look at the rest of this year. Back in June, the chip stocks fell close to 10% in days. Nuclear names that had tripled gave back nearly 30%, and quantum computing stocks got cut almost in half. It felt like the whole AI trade was finally cracking. Then Micron reported its quarterly results, and the picture flipped completely. Revenue was up over 300% from a year earlier. Gross margins hit their highest ever near 85%, and its most advanced memory chips were already sold out through 2026, with the shortage expected to run into 2028. That is not a bubble losing air, that is a supply chain that cannot keep up with demand. So today I want to walk you through 8 companies that got dragged down in that panic, even though their businesses are stronger than ever. And by the end, I will show you how I think about sizing positions across a list like this. Now let's start where the whole build-out actually begins. Electricity. Every AI data center needs power, and long before you get to a chip, you need switchgear, transformers, and backup systems to keep everything running. That is where Eaton comes in. Here's a number that puts this company in a different light. For every megawatt of AI computing power that gets built, Eaton's electrical equipment accounts for roughly $3.4 million of spending. The industry is expected to build around 13.6 gigawatts of new data center capacity this year alone. Do the math, and that is close to $46 billion of electrical equipment demand in a single year from a company that did about $27 billion in total revenue last year, meaning 1 year of data center. Construction opens a market larger than Eaton's entire business used to be. This is already showing up, since data center orders grew about 240% over the past year, with nearly a full year of sales locked into backlog. Last quarter's headline operating margin dropped to around 15%, which looks like trouble, but that drop came from the cost of closing acquisitions, and the core electrical business on its own actually ran at a 22.7% margin, with record-adjusted earnings and raised guidance. Zoom out further, and the transformation is obvious. 6 years ago, Eaton was a 13% margin industrial doing about $21 billion in revenue. And today, it does over $27 billion at nearly 20% margins. So profit nearly doubled even as margins expanded. A stock like this deserves a premium, and a pullback like the one we just saw is exactly the window long-term investors wait for. While we are still talking about power, the second name is BWX Technologies, and out of every nuclear-related stock out there, this is the one I would actually feel comfortable buying on a dip. It is the only consistently profitable name in the group, and it is the sole manufacturer of the reactors that power every submarine and aircraft carrier in the United States Navy. When nuclear stocks sold off, the gap between BWX Technologies and the hype names showed up fast. Stocks like Oklo and NewScale fell about 30%, while BWX Technologies gave back only around 17%, falling from a base that had actually been climbing while the others dropped, simply because BWX Technologies already builds reactors and gets paid today, while the newer names are still years from their first commercial reactor. But the Navy contracts are just the foundation, because this company quietly runs 4 businesses under one roof. It is building the pressure vessel, the largest component, for one of the first small modular reactors going up in North America. It manufactures the fuel used by Kairos Power, which is building a reactor to help power Google's data centers. And its medical division produces isotopes for cancer treatment, including therapies for liver tumors. With one stock, you get a defense monopoly, a piece of the nuclear revival, an AI power supplier, and a cancer treatment business all at once. The order book backs this up with a record $8.6 billion in backlog, up 77% in a single year, against a company doing under $4 billion in annual revenue, more than 2 years of work already locked in. Free cash flow climbed from about $46 million in 2023 to nearly $300 million in 2025, with guidance pointing even higher this year. The one thing to watch is valuation, since it trades near 43 times forward earnings for a company growing in the low double digits. The quality is not in question, the entry price is, so a pullback like we have seen over the past few months is genuinely how you get a better setup. Before we keep going, if this is helping you think about your own portfolio, drop a comment and let me know which of these names you already own, and share this with someone still figuring out where to put new money this year. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and I read every comment. Now let's move into chips, starting with the name everyone expects, NVIDIA. The real monopoly here is not the chips, it is the software. Almost everything in AI is written for NVIDIA's CUDA platform, with roughly 6 million developers building on it, and over 1 billion chips already out in the world, a lock-in that is nearly impossible for a competitor to break. This company runs the same playbook across several industries at once. In data centers, it sells an entire rack as a complete computing system, and its networking division alone tripled over the past year to a run rate near $60 billion. In robotics, it builds the platform humanoid robots are trained on. And in quantum computing, it builds the software layer these machines use, with 17 of the top hardware makers and 9 national labs already plugged in. So no matter who wins the race in AI, robotics, or quantum computing, NVIDIA gets paid either way. Over the past 3 years, revenue climbed 8 times over, from $27 billion to more than $215 billion. And the stock got cheaper as it climbed, with the price-to-earnings ratio falling from over 100 down to around 30. Simply because earnings grew faster than the share price. That is why its price-to-earnings growth ratio sits near 0.5, and anything around 1 or lower signals a stock cheap relative to its growth. After this pullback left it oversold against its 200-day moving average, this is exactly the setup where I want to own the company the entire AI economy runs through. Next is the other side of that same trade, and that is Broadcom. If NVIDIA is the company everyone pays, Broadcom is the company they call when they want to stop paying it. When Google, Meta, OpenAI, or Anthropic wants to design its own custom AI chip to cut dependence on NVIDIA, Broadcom is who they call to co-design it, and it also sells the networking that connects those chips together, so it gets paid twice on the same cluster. This business is accelerating, not slowing, with AI revenue growing more than 140% last quarter, on pace to nearly triple this year and nearly double again the year after, all backed by a $73 billion order book. And that single line is now close to half the entire company. The VMware acquisition that so many thought would drag the company down actually did the opposite, since VMware's software runs at a richer margin than Broadcom's chip business, around 77% versus 58%, which lifted the overall blend. So even though Broadcom looks expensive at around 60 times earnings, that number is distorted by the VMware accounting. And based on next year's earnings, it trades closer to 24 times, with a price-to-earnings growth ratio around 0.5, just as cheap relative to growth as NVIDIA. After the recent pullback took it back down near its 200-day moving average, this is where I am looking to build a position in what I like to think of as the arms dealer of the entire AI chip race. That brings us to the cheapest and most beaten down of the mega caps, Alphabet. This company designs its own chips, called TPUs, avoiding what people call the NVIDIA tax, and it builds its own Gemini models on top of that. The key to understanding Alphabet is that it is really 4 businesses moving at 4 different speeds. Search is still the cash cow, far from dying, with growth nearly doubling over the past year from 10% up to 19%, as its AI mode feature crossed 1 billion users and started monetizing questions it never could before. Google Cloud is the fast-growing rocket, with revenue up 63% and operating margin roughly doubling in about a year and a half, moving from the high teens up to 33%. And customers have already signed on for around $460 billion of future cloud work, a backlog bigger than Alphabet's entire annual revenue. Quietly, YouTube has grown larger than Netflix and become the most watched service on American television sets, and then there's Waymo, still treated by many as a free call option, even though it is already running more than 400,000 paid robo-taxi rides every week, roughly 10 times what it was doing not long ago. So you have 4 engines here, and the fastest, highest margin ones are taking a bigger share every quarter. One thing worth flagging, last quarter's profit looked bigger than it really was, inflated by a one-time paper gain, so real underlying earnings are a touch lower than the headline suggested. Even so, this is still the cheapest mega cap in the group, around 24 times. Forward earnings with a price-to-earnings growth ratio near 1.3, and it is the most oversold name on this list, slowly building momentum back, but still with a long way to go, and that is exactly where I like to see it. Another anchor in this group is Arista Networks, the company that builds the high-speed switches that wire GPUs together inside an AI data center. Just like Broadcom and Google, its real advantage is software, because every Arista switch, from a small office closet to a massive AI network spine, runs on the same operating system, which is exactly why the cloud industry standardized around it. For years, the standard way to connect GPUs was NVIDIA's proprietary InfiniBand, and now the industry is shifting that job over to Open Ethernet, which happens to be Arista's home turf. Meta proved this approach works by running a cluster of more than 24,000 GPUs on Arista Ethernet and matching InfiniBand's performance, which is a big part of why Arista's AI networking revenue doubled last year and is guided to grow even more this year. A lot of that demand is already paid for too, since customers prepay ahead of delivery, and that deferred revenue has roughly doubled to more than $6 billion sitting on the balance sheet. Underneath all of this is a genuinely strong balance sheet, with revenue nearly quadrupling over 6 years, while operating margin widened from 30% up to 43%, and zero debt against more than $12 billion in net cash. Its gross margin appeared to slip during the year, but for the full year came in flat at 64%, the same as before, because when lower margin cloud orders ship in heavier volume, the blend dips by design rather than weakness. The one real catch is price, since near 44 times forward earnings, its price-to-earnings growth ratio sits close to 2, the richest in this group. And the market made that point clear when Arista beat and raised guidance and the stock still fell. So of all the mega cap names here, this is the one where valuation matters a little more, which is why I am watching for pullbacks toward its 50-day moving average, where buyers have tended to step back in. If you're finding this useful, tap that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this channel. The next 3 names are just as important as the ones we already covered. Now let's drop down into smaller companies where both risk and potential reward step up considerably. First up is Rambus, the shovel seller of the memory world. Every high-speed memory module going into an AI server needs a small set of traffic, control chips, and Rambus makes the entire set, led by a component called the RCD, in what is essentially a 3-company club, so it gets paid no matter which memory manufacturer wins. The business has completely transformed. A decade ago, Rambus was a money-losing patent licensing operation, and today it is a debt-free, profitable chip company whose operating margin swung from negative 38% to positive 37%. There is an interesting twist here. Rambus gets paid based on the number of memory modules that ship, not on the price of memory itself. So when memory supply gets tight and prices spike, which is fantastic news for a company like Micron, fewer modules actually ship, and that can act as a headwind for Rambus. That is part of why this is the highest risk name on this list. Right now, it trades near 60 times earnings, with a price-to-earnings growth ratio well above 2, and it is working through overhangs at once, a document request tied to a Justice Department inquiry where it has not been charged, a securities inquiry that so far is just a law firm looking for plaintiffs, and a chief financial officer who left this year with no stated disagreement. Given all of that, this is a smaller position, sized down on purpose, and one that only makes sense on a genuine pullback, like the ones we have been seeing. On the optical side of the build-out, there is Fabrinet, probably the purest picks and shovels play on this entire list. Fabrinet is the factory that physically manufactures the optical transceivers that connect GPUs and switches inside an AI data center, building them for Cisco, NVIDIA, Coherent, and Lumentum, so it wins no matter whose brand ends up on the final product. Customers cannot easily walk away either, because aligning lasers and fiber optics to within a fraction of the width of a human hair takes years to properly qualify. And once a program is certified inside Fabrinet's clean rooms, moving it elsewhere is slow and risky. To me, the demand story is the real headline, because its data center interconnect business grew 90% over the past year. And what is holding growth back is not a lack of orders, it is capacity, since demand is running well ahead of what it can physically build, which is exactly why it is racing to construct a new plant. This is a thin margin business by nature, since customers own the designs, so do not expect much more than the current 12% gross margin. The quality shows up elsewhere. Revenue more than doubled over 6 years, while operating margin climbed from under 8% to nearly 10%. It earns about 20% on invested capital with no debt. The catch is that it is small and concentrated, with NVIDIA and Cisco together about half of total sales, and even after a 30% pullback, it is not exactly cheap, at a price-to-earnings growth ratio near 1.5. This is the smaller, higher-risk end of the optical trade, sized accordingly, and a pullback like the one we have seen recently makes the entry point a little more attractive. So if I were putting new money into this basket today, here's how I would balance it out. Lean heavier on the mega caps like NVIDIA, Broadcom, and Alphabet, scale down through Eaton and BWX Technologies, and keep the smallest allocations for higher-risk names like Rambus and Fabrinet. That is genuinely how I run my own portfolio, built so the smaller, riskier bets can pay off nicely if they work, but will not drag the whole basket down if they do not. Before you go, tell me in the comments which of these 8 names you are most interested in. And if this video helped you see the AI build out more clearly, share it with someone who could use it. On Ticker Hawk, we will keep digging through the numbers, so you always know exactly what you're buying and why.